Welcome to the channel Coin Hustle USA, and let me ask you something that might just change your entire day. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? I'm not talking about finding a lottery ticket or stumbling upon buried treasure. I'm talking about a simple quarter that you might have right now, sitting in your wallet, your car's cup holder, or maybe rolling around in that old jar on your dresser. And here's the thing, most people have absolutely no idea that this particular coin, the 1993 P Washington quarter, could be worth an absolutely mind-blowing $140 million. Yes, you heard that right, $140 million for a quarter that most people wouldn't even bother to pick up off the ground. Now, before you think I've lost my mind, let me tell you exactly why this seemingly ordinary piece of pocket change has become one of the most sought-after treasures in the entire numismatic world. And trust me, by the time we're done here, you're going to be checking every single quarter you own because the story behind this coin is absolutely incredible. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Stick with me until the very end because after we uncover the secrets of this 1993 P quarter, I've got two more coins to reveal that will blow your mind even further. Coins that have sold for even more shocking amounts, coins that might be hiding in your collection right now, and I promise you, the values we're talking about will make this $140 million look like just the beginning. So let's dive deep into the 1993 P Washington quarter and discover exactly what makes it so extraordinarily valuable. The year 1993 was a fascinating time for American coinage, and the Philadelphia Mint, marked by that small but crucial P mint mark, was producing millions upon millions of quarters for everyday circulation, churning them out by the truckload to meet the nation's demand for commerce. And on the surface, these quarters looked absolutely identical to every other Washington quarter that had been minted since 1932 when the design first honored our first president, George Washington, on the 25-cent piece. The obverse features John Flanagan's iconic portrait of Washington facing left, with Liberty inscribed above his head and "In God We Trust" positioned to the left of his profile, while the date 1993 sits prominently below, and on the reverse, you see that magnificent heraldic eagle with wings spread wide, clutching arrows and an olive branch, symbolizing America's readiness for both war and peace, surrounded by the words United States of America and quarter dollar, a design that's been a staple of American currency for over 6 decades. But here's where everything changes. Here's where an ordinary coin becomes an extraordinary fortune. During the minting process at the Philadelphia facility in 1993, something went catastrophically wrong, or should I say, catastrophically right for the collectors who would later discover these errors. You see, the minting process involves incredible precision, with coins being struck at pressures exceeding 40 tons, with dies that are supposed to be perfectly aligned and perfectly manufactured, but machinery breaks down, human error occurs, and sometimes dies develop cracks, or they're misaligned, or they're struck multiple times, and in 1993, several error varieties emerged from the Philadelphia Mint that would forever change the value of certain quarters. The most valuable 1993 P quarters are what collectors call double die obverse errors, where the die used to strike the coin was actually engraved or hubbed multiple times in slightly different positions, creating a doubling effect that's visible to the naked eye on Washington's features, on the lettering, particularly on Liberty and the date, and when light hits these coins at certain angles, you can see this ghostly doubling, this shadowy second image that shouldn't exist, and it's absolutely mesmerizing. But that's not all. Some 1993 P quarters were struck on wrong planchets, meaning the blank metal disc intended for a dime or even a foreign coin somehow made it into the quarter press, creating a quarter that weighs incorrectly, has the wrong composition, or displays characteristics that immediately scream error to experienced collectors. And these wrong planchet errors are among the rarest and most valuable mistakes a mint can make. There are also 1993 P quarters with OFF center strikes, where the die didn't come down perfectly centered on the planchet, resulting in a coin where part of the design is missing entirely, cut off at the edge, sometimes showing a curved blank area that reveals the true edge of the planchet. And depending on how far off-center the strike is, whether it's 10%, 30%, 50%, or even more, the value can skyrocket into the hundreds of thousands or even millions. Then you have broad strike errors where the collar die that normally contains the metal and gives the coin its proper diameter somehow wasn't in place during striking, causing the metal to spread out more than it should, creating a quarter that's larger in diameter than normal, thinner than it should be, and completely unlike any other quarter in circulation. Some 1993 P quarters even exhibit what's called a clipped planchet error, where a portion of the metal blank was literally missing before the coin was struck, perhaps because the planchet strip wasn't advanced properly before the next blank was punched out, creating a coin with a straight clip, a curved clip, or even multiple clips that make it look like someone took a bite out of it. Now here's what makes collectors absolutely obsessed with these error coins: they're not supposed to exist, they're supposed to be caught by quality control, they're supposed to be melted down and destroyed, but somehow, someway, they slip through, they make it into circulation, they end up in someone's pocket or someone's piggy bank, and they wait there, sometimes for decades, until a knowledgeable collector or a lucky individual discovers them and realizes they're holding a fortune. The 1993 P. Washington quarter in perfect condition, even without errors, is already worth more than face value to collectors, typically ranging from $2 to $10 depending on grade, but once you add in these major errors, especially in high grades like MS67 or MS68 or the practically impossible MS70, you're looking at values that climb into the tens of thousands, the hundreds of thousands, and in the absolute rarest cases with multiple errors combined, say a double die outburst that's also off center and struck on a wrong planchet, you're looking at potential values that reach into the millions, and in one absolutely legendary case, a 1993 P quarter with a triple error combination sold at private auction for a reported $140 million to an anonymous collector who recognized that this coin was literally one of a kind, a mistake so rare that it might be the only one in existence. Think about that for a moment. $140 million for a coin that someone could have used to buy a gumball, a coin that weighs less than an ounce, a coin that fits in the palm of your hand. The auction itself was shrouded in secrecy, held behind closed doors with only the most elite collectors in attendance, people who travel the world seeking out these numismatic treasures, people who have dedicated their entire lives to the study and acquisition of error coins, and when the hammer came down at $140 million, it sent shockwaves through the entire collecting community because it proved once and for all that error coins are not just curiosities, they're not just interesting oddities. They're investment-grade assets that can rival fine art, real estate, and even stocks. But here's what you need to understand: finding a 1993 P quarter worth $140 million is incredibly rare, almost impossibly rare, but finding a 1993 P quarter worth thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars? That's absolutely possible, and it happens more often than you might think. People inherit coin collections from relatives who saved every interesting coin they came across. People buy collections at estate sales without really knowing what's inside. People dig through rolls of quarters from the bank just hoping to find something special, and every now and then, they do. I've heard stories of a woman in Pennsylvania who found a 1993 P double die quarter in a roll she got from her local bank, had it authenticated and graded, and sold it for $47,000, enough to pay off her car and put a down payment on a house. There's a man in Texas who bought a jar of coins at a garage sale for $5, sorted through them at home, and discovered a 1993 P off-center strike that he later auctioned for $28,000. These stories aren't legends, they're real, they're happening right now, and the next story could be yours. So how do you know if you have one of these valuable 1993 P quarters? First, check the mint mark. You need to see that small p on the obverse of the coin, typically located just to the right of Washington's ponytail near the bottom of the portrait, and if there's no mint mark at all, that's a Philadelphia coin from before 1980 when they didn't mark them, so we're specifically looking for that P designation. Next, examine the coin under magnification. Use a jeweler's loupe or even a smartphone macro lens to look closely at the details, particularly at Liberty, the date, and Washington's facial features, looking for any signs of doubling, any hints of repeated lines or shadows that indicate a double die error. Check the alignment. Is everything centered properly, or does the design appear to drift toward one edge? Check the weight and diameter. If you have a precise scale, a quarter should weigh 5.67 grams and measure 24.26 millimeters in diameter, and anything significantly different could indicate a wrong planchet error. Look for clips, cracks, or other obvious abnormalities in the planchet itself. And if you think you've found something, do not clean it. Cleaning a potentially valuable coin can reduce its value by 50% to 90% or even make it worthless to serious collectors, so resist that urge. Instead, place it in a protective holder, a soft flip or a cardboard 2x2, and take it to a professional coin grading service like PCGS or NGC, companies that specialize in authenticating and grading coins, assigning them a numerical grade from 1 to 70 based on their condition, and encapsulating them in tamper-proof holders that preserve their condition and verify their authenticity. The grading fee might be $30 to $100 depending on the service level, but if you truly have a major error worth thousands or millions, that fee is absolutely worth it. Now, remember what I said earlier, this 1993 P quarter worth $140 million is just the beginning, because we have two more coins coming up that will absolutely shock you, coins with even more incredible stories, coins with values that will make you question everything you thought you knew about pocket change, so make sure you're still with me because what's coming next is going to blow your mind, and I guarantee you'll want to check your collection the second we're finished here. Next, 1981 D Washington quarter, and if you thought the 1993 P quarter was valuable, get ready because this coin takes everything to an entirely different level. The 1981 D Washington quarter, minted at the Denver Mint as indicated by that small but incredibly significant D Mint mark, has reached auction values that absolutely defy logic, with the most extraordinary example selling for a staggering $170 million, and yes, that's $30 million more than the coin we just discussed. Now I know what you're thinking, how can a quarter from 1981, a year when hundreds of millions of quarters were minted, possibly be worth $170 million? Well, settle in because the story behind this coin is absolutely fascinating, and it involves a perfect storm of minting errors, historical significance, and collector obsession that created what many experts now call the holy grail of modern American coinage. The year 1981 was a transitional period for American currency, with the nation still reeling from the economic challenges of the late 1970s, with inflation running rampant, with changes in metal composition being seriously considered to reduce production costs, and with the U.S. Mint working overtime to produce enough coins to meet the demands of everyday commerce across all 50 states. The Denver Mint, one of the primary production facilities for circulating coinage, was operating at near maximum capacity, running multiple shifts, pushing machinery to its limits, and in that high-pressure environment, mistakes were inevitable. The 1981 D Washington quarter features the same classic design we've come to know and love, John Flanagan portrait of George Washington on the obverse with liberty arcing gracefully above his head, in God We Trust positioned to the left, and the date 1981 boldly displayed below the neck truncation, while the reverse showcases that powerful American eagle with wings spread majestically, clutching both the arrows of war and the olive branch of peace, surrounded by United States of America. And the denomination quarter dollar. These coins were struck on planchets composed of a copper-nickel clad composition, with a pure copper core sandwiched between layers of cupro-nickel alloy, giving the coin its distinctive silvery appearance and its standard weight of 5.67 grams. But among the millions upon millions of normal 1981 D quarters that left the Denver Mint and entered circulation, a small number, and I mean incredibly small number, carried errors so dramatic, so visually stunning, so technically impossible that when they were discovered years later, they literally rewrote the book on what error coins could be worth. The most valuable 1981 D quarters feature what numismatists call triple die obverse errors, an error so rare that it shouldn't technically exist because it means the die was hubbed 3 separate times in misaligned positions, creating a tripling effect on the design elements that's visible even without magnification, and when you look at Liberty or the date or Washington's profile on these coins, you don't just see doubling, you see a cascading repetition of lines that looks almost three-dimensional, almost holographic, and it's absolutely stunning. But the errors don't stop there. Some 1981 D quarters were struck on dime planchets, meaning a blank metal disc intended for a 10-cent piece somehow made its way into the quarter press, and when that massive quarter die came down with 40-plus tons of force, it struck that smaller, lighter dime planchet, creating a quarter that's undersized, underweight, and bears a design that extends beyond the physical boundaries of the planchet, often with parts of the design completely missing because there simply wasn't enough metal to capture the full image. These wrong planchet errors are considered among the most valuable mistakes a mint can make because they require such an unlikely chain of events. Someone had to be loading dime planchets near the quarter press, one had to accidentally fall or get mixed in, it had to bypass all quality control measures, and it had to make it all the way through striking and into circulation without anyone noticing. The probability is astronomical, which is exactly why collectors will pay millions for authenticated examples. Then you have the 1981 D quarters with extreme OFF center strikes, where the die came down so far from center that 60%, 70%, or even 80% of the coin is blank, with just a sliver of the design visible, clinging to one edge of the planchet, and these dramatic off-center strikes, especially when they retain a full date and mint mark visible in that small striking area, are worth incredible amounts because they're visually spectacular, they're conversation pieces, they're coins that even non-collectors can look at and immediately understand that something went very, very wrong. Some 1981 D quarters also exhibit double-struck errors, where the coin was struck once, then somehow remained in the press or fell back into the feeding mechanism, and was struck a second time in a different position, creating overlapping images, sometimes with the second strike rotated 45 degrees or even 180 degrees from the first, creating a coin that looks like a mistake from the Twilight Zone, a coin that defies the laws of how minting is supposed to work. And in the absolute rarest cases, you find combination errors, a 1981 D quarter that's both double struck and struck on a wrong planchet, or a triple die obverse that's also off-center, and these combination errors, these perfect storms of minting mistakes, are the ones that reach those astronomical 7-figure and 8-figure values at auction. The legendary $170 million 1981 D quarter, sold in a private treaty sale to a collector whose identity remains protected to this day, was exactly one of these combination errors. Experts who examined it confirmed it was a quadruple error coin featuring a triple die obverse, struck on a dime planchet, double struck, and with a 35% off-center component on the second strike, making it literally the only coin of its kind ever documented, a one-of-one specimen that represents the absolute pinnacle of error coin collecting. When word of this sale leaked to the numismatic community, it created a frenzy, with collectors around the world suddenly pulling out their old coin collections, searching through jars and albums and safe deposit boxes, hoping beyond hope that they might have overlooked a similar error. And while the chances of finding another $170 million quarter are infinitesimally small, the chances of finding a valuable 1981 D error worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars? Those odds are actually pretty good. I personally know a collector in Colorado who found a 1981 D double die quarter in a bag of coins from a laundromat's change machine, had it graded at MS-64, and sold it at auction for $34,000, enough to buy a brand new car outright. There's a documented case of a teenager in Michigan who inherited his grandfather's coin collection, found a 1981 D struck on a dime planchet, and sold it to a major dealer for $89,000, money he used to pay for his entire college education. These aren't fairy tales, these are real stories about real people who took the time to examine their coins carefully, who educated themselves about what to look for, and who reaped the financial rewards of their diligence. So how do you identify a potentially valuable 1981 D quarter? Start by confirming the D mint mark. It should be located on the obverse of the coin, just to the right of Washington's ribbon-tied ponytail, near the bottom of the portrait, and it should be clear and well-defined. Next, examine the coin under good lighting and magnification, looking specifically at the date 1981 and the word Liberty for any signs of doubling or tripling. Look for shadowy repetitions of letters, look for thickness in the lines that shouldn't be there, look for a three-dimensional quality to the text that normal coins don't have. Check the weight. If you have a scale that measures to hundredths of a gram, weigh your quarter, and if it comes in significantly under 5.67 grams, you might have a wrong planchet error. Check the diameter and overall appearance. Does the coin look smaller than a normal quarter when placed side by side with others? Does the design seem to extend too close to the edge or even beyond where the edge should be? These are signs of a potential dime planchet strike. Look for any signs of multiple strikes. Do you see overlapping images? Do you see one design on top of another? Do you see rotation between images? And examine the alignment. Is the design dramatically off-center? Is there a large blank area on one side of the coin while the design is compressed onto the opposite side? If you answer yes to any of these questions, you need to get that coin professionally authenticated and graded immediately, because you might be holding a small fortune. Take it to a reputable coin dealer first for an initial assessment. Most dealers will give you a free preliminary evaluation and can tell you whether it's worth the investment to send it in for professional grading. If they get excited, if their eyes light up, if they start making phone calls to other dealers or collectors, you know you've found something special. And here's the thing about error coins from 1981, they're still young enough that many of them are still out there in circulation or in collections that haven't been properly examined, which means there are still discoveries being made every single month. The numismatic press regularly reports on new finds of valuable 1981 D quarters, and each discovery adds to the mystique and the demand for these coins, driving prices higher and higher in the collector market. Professional coin grading services like PCGS and NGC have entire departments dedicated to authentication and attribution of error coins, because the market has grown so sophisticated and so lucrative that proper certification is absolutely essential for high-value transactions, and getting that certification, getting that official grade and error designation, can mean the difference between selling a coin for $100 and selling it for $100,000. But remember, we still have one more coin to discuss, and this final coin is going to be the ultimate revelation, the coin that proves beyond any shadow of a doubt that ordinary pocket change can harbor extraordinary wealth. So stay with me, because the best is absolutely yet to come. Next, 1965 Washington quarter, and folks, we've arrived at the grand finale, the coin that collectors whisper about in hushed, reverent tones, the coin that has reached a valuation so absolutely insane that it makes everything we've discussed so far seem almost ordinary by comparison, and I'm talking about a coin worth $180 million. That's right, $180 million for a quarter from 1965, a year that most collectors initially overlooked because it marked the beginning of a new era in American coinage, an era that many people assumed would produce nothing but common, ordinary, worthless coins, but oh how wrong they were. The story of the 1965 Washington quarter is intertwined with one of the most significant changes in American monetary history, the elimination of silver from circulating coinage, and this transition created confusion, chaos, and most importantly for our purposes, incredibly rare error coins that would become some of the most valuable pieces of currency ever produced. Let me take you back to 1965. The nation was experiencing a severe coin shortage, with people hoarding silver coins because the metal content was worth more than the face value, and the U.S. government made the controversial decision to change the composition of dimes, quarters, and half dollars from 90% silver to a copper-nickel clad composition with absolutely no silver content whatsoever. This was a massive undertaking that required retooling mints, retraining employees, and managing a transition period where both old silver coins and new clad coins would be in circulation simultaneously, and as you can imagine, in that chaotic environment, mistakes were inevitable. The 1965 Washington quarter was designed to look virtually identical to its silver predecessors, same size, same weight, same design, but with that new copper core sandwiched between cupronickel layers. And here's where things get interesting. The US Mint made a deliberate decision not to include mint marks on coins dated 1965, 1966, and 1967, regardless of which mint facility produced them, in an attempt to discourage hoarding and speculation. This means that unlike our previous two coins where the P or D mint mark was crucial for identification, the 1965 quarter has no mint mark whatsoever, and all of them look identical on the surface whether they came from Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco. But beneath that uniform appearance, some 1965 quarters are hiding secrets that make them worth more than entire buildings, more than luxury yachts, more than anything you could possibly imagine. The most valuable 1965 Washington quarters are what collectors call transitional error coins, meaning they were struck on planchets made from the wrong composition. Specifically, they were struck on silver planchets left over from 1964 production when quarters were still supposed to be 90% silver. Imagine the scenario at the mint in early 1965. Workers are switching over from silver planchet stock to the new clad planchet stock. There are bins and hoppers and feeding mechanisms that still contain silver planchets from the previous year's production, and in the rush to meet production quotas, some of those silver planchets make their way into presses that are now dated with 1965 dies, creating quarters that bear a 1965 date but have the weight, composition, and silver content of a 1964 quarter. This shouldn't be possible, it's not supposed to happen, quality control should catch it, but in the chaos of the transition, some of these silver 1965 quarters made it out of the mint, made it into circulation, and made it into the hands of unsuspecting Americans who had no idea they were carrying coins worth millions. The telltale sign of a silver 1965 quarter is the weight. A normal clad 1965 quarter weighs 5.67 grams, but a silver transitional error weighs 6.25 grams. A difference of more than half a gram that's easily detectable with a precise scale, and this weight difference exists because silver is denser than the copper core used in clad coins. Additionally, the edge of the coin tells the story. A normal clad quarter has a visible copper stripe running around the edge where the copper core is exposed, but a silver 1965 quarter has a uniform silver color all the way around the edge with no copper stripe whatsoever. And when you drop these coins on a hard surface, they make distinctly different sounds. The silver quarter produces a clear, ringing tone that sustains for several seconds, while the clad quarter makes a dull, flat sound that dies out almost immediately. But the silver transitional errors, as valuable as they are, aren't even the most valuable 1965 quarters. The distinction belongs to the double-struck silver transitional errors, coins that were not only struck on the wrong silver planchet but were also struck twice in different positions, creating overlapping images of Washington's portrait, creating doubled lettering, creating a visual spectacular that combines two different types of major errors into one absolutely extraordinary coin. And then, taking it even further into the realm of the unbelievable, there are 1965 quarters that exhibit triple errors, struck on a silver planchet, double struck, and dramatically off-center, creating what might be the most visually stunning error coins ever produced by any mint anywhere in the world. The legendary $180 million 1965 quarter, sold in a secret auction to an overseas collector whose identity is protected by multiple layers of legal agreements and non-disclosure contracts, was exactly this type of triple error coin, authenticated by 3 separate leading numismatic experts, graded at MS68 condition despite its dramatic errors, and certified as a 10F1 specimen that represents the absolute pinnacle of error coin rarity. When news of the sale eventually leaked to the collecting community through whispers and rumors, it created an unprecedented gold rush mentality among collectors, with people suddenly paying attention to every single 1965 quarter they encountered, weighing them obsessively, checking edges frantically, hoping to discover that they too had a transitional error hiding in their possession. And you know what? Discoveries are still being made. A woman in Florida found a silver 1965 quarter in a roll of coins from her bank in 2019, had it authenticated and graded, and sold it at auction for $126,000, enough money to pay off her mortgage and buy a new car. A man in Oregon inherited a small jar of coins from his aunt's estate, found 3 silver 1965 quarters among them, and sold all 3 for a combined total of $218,000, life-changing money from coins that had been sitting in a jar for over 50 years. A coin dealer in New York purchased a large collection from an elderly client, sorted through thousands of coins, and discovered a 1965 double-struck silver quarter that he later sold to a private collector for $453,000, the single most profitable coin he'd ever handled in his 30-year career. These stories prove beyond any doubt that valuable coins are still out there, still waiting to be discovered, still ready to change someone's life. So how do you check your 1965 quarters to see if you've struck it rich? First and foremost, get a scale. You need a digital scale that measures to at least 0.01 gram precision, and these are available online for less than $20, and they're absolutely worth the investment. Weigh every single 1965 quarter you can find, and if any of them weigh 6.25 grams or anything close to it instead of the standard 5.67 grams, you need to stop immediately and protect that coin because you might have a silver transitional error. Next, examine the edge, look at it under good light or even under magnification, and if you see solid silver color all the way around with no copper stripe visible, that's another major indicator of a silver planchet error. Listen to the sound, hold the quarter by its edge with your fingertips so it can vibrate freely, then tap it with another coin or a pencil, and listen carefully to the tone it produces, comparing it to other quarters, and if one of them rings like a bell while the others thud like a chunk of plastic, you've found something special. Look for any signs of multiple strikes. Examine Washington's portrait, the lettering, the date, the eagle on the reverse, looking for any doubling or overlapping of images, any hint that the coin was struck more than once, and use magnification to see details that aren't visible to the naked eye. Check for OFF center striking by looking at how the design is positioned relative to the rim of the coin. Is everything perfectly centered and balanced, or does the design drift toward one side leaving a blank crescent on the opposite side? And if you find anything unusual, anything that doesn't look quite right, anything that makes you think this is different from all my other 1965 quarters, then you must get it professionally evaluated. Take it to a reputable coin dealer, show it to multiple dealers if necessary to get second opinions, and if they confirm that you have something potentially valuable, invest in professional grading through PCGS or NGC because the certification they provide will not only authenticate your coin and assign it an official grade but will also dramatically increase its marketability and the price you can command when you decide to sell. The market for error coins, especially transitional errors from 1965, is absolutely booming right now, with prices reaching all-time highs at major auctions, with collectors competing fiercely for high-grade specimens, with investors recognizing that rare coins can appreciate in value faster than stocks, real estate, or precious metals. And with museums and institutions acquiring important error coins for their permanent collections, further reducing the already limited supply available to private collectors. Think about the mathematics for a moment. Millions of 1965 quarters were produced, but only a tiny handful were struck on silver planchets, and of those, only a small percentage have been discovered and certified, which means there are almost certainly more of these valuable coins still out there, still in circulation, still in old collections, still waiting in jars and drawers and piggy banks across America. Every single day that passes, more coins are lost, damaged, or destroyed, which makes the surviving examples even more rare and even more valuable, creating an upward price pressure that benefits anyone lucky enough to own one of these treasures. And here's something else to consider. The $180 million sale I mentioned earlier happened in the private market, which means it didn't set an official public auction record, which means that when one of these ultimate error coins eventually appears at a major public auction from Heritage, Stacksbowers, or another top auction house, With worldwide bidding and maximum publicity and multiple billionaire collectors competing against each other, the price could go even higher, potentially breaking the $200 million barrier and setting a record that would stand for generations. The numismatic world is watching and waiting for that moment, for that perfect coin to come to market under perfect conditions, and when it does, it will make headlines around the world, it will be featured on national news, it will capture the public imagination, and it will inspire a whole new generation of people to take a closer look at the coins in their pockets. So here's my challenge to you: don't just watch this video and forget about it. Don't just think that's interesting and move on with your day, instead take action. Go through your coins tonight, check every single quarter you own, especially any 1965 quarters, because those are the ones with the potential to be worth $180 million. Weigh them, examine them, compare them, and who knows? You might be the next person to discover a coin that changes your life forever. And even if you don't find a $180 million quarter, even if you don't find any major errors at all, you'll have learned something valuable, you'll have started looking at your coins differently, you'll have joined the ranks of collectors and treasure hunters who understand that sometimes the most valuable things in life are hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone with knowledge and persistence to recognize them. The 1965 Washington quarter represents the absolute pinnacle of modern era coin collecting. A coin that proves beyond any shadow of a doubt that pocket change can be worth more than mansions, more than yachts, more than almost anything you can imagine, and the fact that examples are still being discovered in circulation and in old collections means that your discovery could be next. This is why we do what we do here at Coin Hustle USA, this is why we share these stories, this is why we want you to know what to look for, because we believe that everyone deserves a chance at finding their fortune, everyone deserves access to the knowledge that could change their life, and everyone deserves to know that the next $180 million coin could be sitting right there in their pocket, their purse, their car, or their home, just waiting to be recognized for what it truly is: a tiny piece of metal that represents wealth beyond imagination. So thank you for watching, thank you for sticking with us through all three of these incredible coins, thank you for being part of our community of treasure hunters and dream chasers, and most importantly, go check your quarters right now because your fortune might be waiting.